The desert stretched silent, not with peace but with a hollow ache, as if the world had turned its back and wandered off. Jonah Creed rode alone under a sky-bleached pale, reins loose in one hand, the other hovering near his rifle's grip. His coat, heavy with dust, clung to him, collar raised against a wind too tired to stir. Even the flies had abandoned him. He wasn't aiming for anywhere specific, just drifting from another botched cattle deal, another town where pitying words masked ruthless bargains, another night in a cabin still haunted by the scent of smoke after 3 years. The land sprawled before him, all scrub grass, cracked red earth, and the bleached bones of a long-dead steer, half buried in saddies. A crow rasped above, then fell silent, as if it knew better. Jonah's horse snorted abruptly, ears twitching. He tugged the reins, squinting ahead. Smoke, faint and stale, curled where it had no business being. A few steps farther, a shape emerged. A wagon, or what remained of it. Its wheels were charred stubs. The canopy collapsed like a punctured lung. Scattered in the dirt lay a shoe, a scorched bonnet, a twisted cookpot handle. No horses, no people. Jonah dismounted, joints creaking with the weight of years, rifle in hand. His boots crunched ash as he approached. Still no sound, not even a breeze. Then a cough, soft, raspy, alive. He froze UV-sizes, circling the wreckage, eyes sharp. He spotted movement beneath the wagon's sideboard, behind a pile of singed blankets. Something stirred. He crouched, rifle raised, and met a pair of eyes staring back. A girl, dirt-streaked, maybe 9 or 10, lips cracked, one arm cradling a small bundle. She didn't scream, just yoused at him, her eyes heavy with the world's worst offerings. "Easy now," Jonah said, his voice rough from disuse. "I ain't here to hurt you." The blanket shifted, revealing a toddler's face clinging to the girl with feverish hands. Jonah glimpsed 2 more shapes behind her. A boy, about 12, barely conscious, and another girl, maybe 7, wheezing faintly. 4 of them. "Hell," he muttered. The girl didn't flinch. "They killed Ma and Pa," she said. "Tried to stop them. Shot Pa. I think the baby's sick." Jonah scanned the horizon. No buzzards, no tracks. Whoever did this was gone. "Why you still here?" he asked. "We hid," she said. "They thought we were dead." He stood, the sights biting now, sharp as teeth. Jonah stepped back, breath gritty. This wasn't his fight, wasn't his burden. He was just a man with a rotting cabin and no reason to keep going, as far as the world cared. But when he turned, the girl's hand grabbed his boot, weak but stubborn. "Please don't leave us," she whispered. He stared at her hand, at the toddler wheezing against her chest, at the boy struggling to open one eye. "Damn it," he growled. Holstering his rifle, he lifted the toddler first, light as a sack of flour. He motioned the others to his horse, letting them climb into the saddle while he led it slowly. The sun was climbing, and it was a long walk to his land. They didn't speak for hours. The girl dozed in the saddle, baby pressed to her chest. Jonah walked, hat low, mind spiraling back 3 winters when his cabin caught fire while he was in town. He'd returned to smoke, the stench of charred wood, and a loss so sharp it broke him. Since then, he'd lived in silence, chopped wood, bartered cattle, drank alone, kept 1 chair at his table. Now, 4 children slumped over his saddle. His cabin appeared just before dusk, 2 walls leaning, 1 sagging, the roof patched with tarp and stubborn hope. He helped them down, the eldest boy needing a hand. Inside was no better. Dust coated the shelves, the hearth cold for weeks. Still, it was shelter. Jonah set the baby on a folded blanket and found the last of his beans in a tin. He cooked quietly, the crackle of dry wood mixing with small coughs. No one spoke until the food was served. The older boy broke the silence. We don't even know your name. Jonah Creed, he said. I'm Caleb, the boy replied, nodding to the eldest girl. That's Miriam, then Hannah, and little Isaac. The names settled softly like stones in a deep well. That night, Jonah sat by the fire while the children slept in corners. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. When Isaac cried out in a fever dream, Jonah rose, cradling him awkwardly, rocking slowly as he once had. The boy quieted, tiny fingers clutching Jonah's collar. You're safe for now, Jonah whispered. But he didn't believe it. Outside, a branch snapped. Or maybe it wasn't a branch. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. Nothing, just the weight of unseen eyes. He returned to the fire, rifle across his knees. At dawn, Miriam stirred, eyes bleary. She scanned the room, then fixed on him. You going to send us away? Jonah stared into the flames. Would have done it already. She nodded, curling back with Isaac. Yeah. Trust raw and fragile, hung like smoke. He looked at his rifle, his worn boots, the dying coals. A man could run from life forever, but sometimes life caught him, wrapped in dirt and silence, whispering, please don't leave us. He didn't know it yet, but this burned wagon, these half-dead children, were the start of a miracle. Rough, costly, but a miracle all the same. Far off, the desert wind seemed to murmur, you ain't alone no more. The cabin's door groaned, unaccustomed to company. Jonah nudged it wider with his boot. Dust swirled in the stale air, catching sunlight before settling back to silence. The cabin was one room, barely enough for a mom who'd stopped making space for others. The children entered slowly, eyes feet. Miriam moved first, cradling Isaac. Hannah followed, limping, her bare feet red from the trek. Caleb brought up the rear, clutching a broken chair leg he refused to release. Jonah had offered him a knife for protection on the trail. I don't trust anything without splinters, Caleb said. Jonah understood that kind of logic. He pointed to a threadbare mattress in the corner. Lay the little one there. I'll fetch water. Outside, he filled a dented basin from the rain barrel and set it on the table. The hearth had been cold since spring. He struck flint until it sparked, coaxed a flame, and set beans to simmer while boiling water for washing. You ever slept on a dirt floor? Caleb asked, not joking. Slept under worse, Jonah said. Had a roof fall on me once. That earned a faint smile. While the beans cooked, Jonah dug through a crate of old things, his wife's shawl, a faded Molly, a broken toy horse. He hesitated, then handed the shawl to Miriam. She wrapped it around Isaac without a word, not comfort yet, just its shadow. Hannah tried to help wash dishes, but dropped one. It didn't break. It had lost its handle years ago. She froze, guilt thick on her face. Jonah waved it off. That dish has been dropped more times than a river rock. Miriam smiled, brief but real. They ate in silence, spoons scraping tin. Jonah hadn't heard so many breathing bodies in his home since before the fire. When the meal ended, the children shifted to corners, eyes on doors, backs to walls, like they'd done it before. Jonah took the chair by the fire. He didn't ask questions. Not yet, not tonight. The next morning, Miriam was up, boiling water. Isaac's fever burned on, his skin hot and dry. Jonah frowned. Town's a day away. He needs more than water. Caleb stood. I'll go. Jonah eyed him. You'd fall before the ridge. Caleb didn't back down. I ain't staying behind. Jonah didn't argue, just saddled his horse and rode alone. Town rose like a blister against the dust, a jumble of saloons, feed stores, gossip, and weary faces. Jonah tied his horse outside the general store and went to Doc Larson's. Larson glanced at the list. Fever tonic, thread, gauze, biscuits, and raised an eyebrow. Patching a cow or a person. Jonah gave nothing away. Neither. Just a favor. In the town square, a woman stepped from a millinery shop. Marta, sharp-eyed, loud-mouthed. She crossed her arms. Jonah Creed, thought you gave up playing hero. I did, he said. Now I'm just feeding ghosts. She studied him, then said, housing strays temporarily don't make it permanent. Folks get nervous when a man with no kin collects orphans. He didn't reply, just tipped his hat and returned to his horse. That night, Jonah returned. Isaac was still feverish, but alive. Miriam had made broth from hard bread and wild onions. Hannah's limp had worsened. Jonah ground his teeth, forced a smile, and handed her the tonic. You've done this before, she said. Too many times, he replied. The cabin felt smaller that night. Jonah lay awake on the floor, the children on the mattress and quilts. He listened to their sounds. Coughs, whispered prayers, Caleb shifting to guard the door. He remembered lying like this with Sarah, their daughter between them, about Hannah's age when she died. Jonah had tried to reach her when the fire took the cabin, but the roof collapsed. Folks said it wasn't his fault, but the flames didn't care about words. In the morning, Miriam swept. Hannah folded clothes. Jonah caught Caleb hauling wood to patch the back wall. You don't have to do that, Jonah said. We ain't freeloaders, Caleb replied. We know how to survive. Jonah believed it, but their skill at survival, too sharp for their ages, troubled him. At midday, Sheriff Hollis rode up, dust trailing like a tail. He knocked once, then entered. Creed, he said, eyes sweeping the room. Heard you've been keeping company. Not my company, Jonah said. Just folks in trouble. The sheriff eyed the children. They got names? Miriam, Caleb, Hannah, Isaac, Jonah said. Where's their people? Dead. You know the law. You can't keep minors without writ or kinship. Jonah didn't blink. I'm not keeping them. I'm feeding them. They're free to leave when they stop coughing blood. Hollis scratched his beard. Town's talking. Some think it's noble. Some think you've gone mad. Maybe both, Jonah said. Hollis sighed. 2 weeks. Then you take them to Fort Ellis or see the circuit judge. Jonah nodded. Hollis tipped his hat and left. Miriam stood at the door, eyes wide. Are you sending us away? Jonah knelt by the fireplace. Did I say that? She hesitated. You didn't say you wouldn't. He looked at her, not as a ghost or a burden, but as something fierce and cracked, surviving more than it should. You stay till you're strong. That's the deal. Caleb spoke from the corner. And after? Jonah tossed a log on the fire. Then we figure it out. That night, a storm rolled in. Not rain, just wind and dust scraping the boards like claws. Hannah had a nightmare and cried out. Miriam held her. Isaac whimpered, reaching for Jonah. Without thinking, Jonah pulled him close. The boy settled, feverish breath on his collar seam. Miriam whispered across the dark, You remind him of Pa. Jonah stared at the rafters. I'm not your Pa. I know, she said, but you remind him. Outside, something howled across the plank. Inside, Jonah lay still. Isaac pressed against his ribs. The fire popped, then settled. A man builds a life like a fence, post by post. He digs, plants, ties it tight. Then lightning strikes, and it burns down. Jonah thought his fence was gone, but now 4 small reasons to dig again had appeared. Strangest of all, he didn't hate it. The sky hung low and gray that morning, thick with dust that never settled. Jonah stood by the split-rail fence, fixing a loose post, rifle slung across his back. His eyes scanned the hills. He wasn't sure what he sought, only that something was coming. Inside, Caleb taught Hannah to braid rope from torn flour sacks. Miriam hummed, washing pots with snowmelt. Isaac sat by the hearth, sniffling, his fever down but lingering. The routine felt normal, and that scared Jonah most. Comfort made you forget how fast things crumbled. He tied off the post, wiping his brow. A glint flickered on the horizon. Movement. He squinted, heart still. Just wind, a trick of the sun, or a man on the ridge watching. He didn't tell the children. Inside, he bolted the door. Miriam noticed. "What is it?" "Nothing yet," he said. "Keep the curtains drawn." That night, they ate boiled turnips and flatbread. Silence thin. Hannah leaned into Miriam. Isaac sucked his thumb, eyes half closed. Caleb poked the fire, then said without warning, "They ain't done hunting us." Jonah looked up. Miriam's spoon paused. "I saw one," Caleb said. "Same coat as the man who shot Paisy, watching from the ridge this morning." "You sure?" Jonah asked. Caleb nodded. "I remember his face, scarred like someone carved it with a knife." Miriam's voice turned brittle. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "Didn't want you scared," Caleb said. Hannah trembled. "Will they come back?" Jonah stood calm. "If they do, they'll regret it." Caleb's jaw tightened. "You don't know them." "No," Jonah said, "but they don't know me either." The next morning, Jonah prepared quietly, methodically. He patched window gaps with hide, set bells on tripwires in the yard, reinforced the door with iron nails saved for no reason until now. He buried a small pistol under the mattress and made Miriam memorize its place. Caleb watched every move. "Teach me," he said. Jonah handed him a hammer. They worked together. That afternoon, Miriam approached holding a cloth bundle. She unrolled it on the table. 3 gold coins, smudged but real. Jonah stared. "Where'd you get that?" Her eyes didn't waver. "The men, after they killed our folks, drank themselves stupid. I snuck into their packs before we ran." Jonah ran a hand over his face. "You know they were tracking you for this." She nodded. "It was that or starve. I'd rather die with something than live with nothing." He respected that. Didn't like it. "Don't show these to anyone," he said. "Not even the sheriff." "Why not?" "Because Gaul don't buy safety, just attention." By sundown, the air shifted. The hush deeper, like the land held its breath. After the children slept, Jonah sat, rifle across his knees. He didn't sleep, didn't blink. Just past midnight, he heard hoofbeats, soft, deliberate. 2 horses, maybe 3. He rose silently and peered out. Shapes moved at the clearing's edge, men dismounting, low and slow. One held a torch, another a long gun. Jonah cocked his rifle and glanced at Caleb's bed. But the boy was awake, gripping his chair leg like a blade. Jonah nodded once. Outside a voice called, calm and mocking. "You've got something that don't belong to you, old man." Jonah stepped onto the porch. "Go home." The man laughed. "Ain't no home left but this. And I ain't leaving without what's mine." "You mean the gold?" Jonah said. "Or the children?" The man's voice darkened. "Same thing." Jonah didn't answer. He raised his rifle. A shot cracked through the night. Jonah ducked, rolled, returned fire. The porch post splintered. Inside, the children screamed. Miriam shoved Hannah and Isaac into the root cellar. Caleb crouched by the window, eyes hard. Jonah kept firing, moving between cover, shadows, his alleys. He counted 3 men, maybe 4. One fell near the water trough, cursing. Another circled to the back. Miriam shouted, "They're trying the back door." Jonah bolted inside as the door creaked. A boot kicked it open. A man stepped through, scarred face, long coat. He raised his revolver. Caleb threw his chair leg like a spear, hitting the man's shoulder, throwing off his aim. Jonah fired once. The man dropped, blood blooming across his chest. Caleb stared, pale but steady. "Good throw," Jonah said, gripping his shoulder. By dawn, 2 were dead, 1 fled. Scarface was gone. They buried the bodies behind the barn. No words spoken. The children watched from the porch, eyes wide and weary. That morning, Sheriff Hollis rode up, dust on his coat, jaw set. "You started a war," he snapped. Jonah told him everything. Hollis didn't interrupt. When it was over, he said, "I can't protect you if they come back." "Don't need you to," Jonah replied. Hollis shook his head. "You can't hold out forever." "Don't plan to," Jonah said. "I plan to end it." Hollis gave him a long look, then nodded. "I'll send a wire to Fort Ellis, see if we can get real law." He rode off. Miriam stood beside Jonah, holding the gold coins. "Maybe we should give them up." Jonah shook his head. "Too late for that. This ain't about gold anymore. It's about what you saw, what they did." "You're risking a lot," she said. "I'm not risking anything I wasn't willing to lose," he said. "But maybe I found something worth keeping." She looked at him. Really looked. "You're different than I thought." "So are you," he replied. That night they sat by the fire, quiet but together. Hannah braided Miriam's hair. Caleb cleaned the rifle unasked. Isaac drooled on Jonah's shirt and was allowed to stay. Jonah felt the heat on his palms, sensing what followed them now. Not just danger, but history, grief, memory, and maybe something worth fighting for, worth living for. The storm came not with thunder, but with silence, the kind that nests behind your ribs where fear lives. Jonah woke to an iron-gray sky, smoke bleeding across the horizon, slow and hungry. Not from a cook fire or lightning, but the kind that trailed men. He stepped outside, smelling char, gunpowder, saddle sweat. They were coming again. Inside, the children stirred, sensing it. Miriam opened her eyes, asking nothing. Hannah crawled into her arms. Caleb pulled back the curtain just enough to peer out. "I count 5 riders," he whispered. "Maybe 6, Jonah said, strapping on his boots, fingers quick, no hesitation. Miriam stood, pale but steady. "We can run." "They'd catch us," Jonah said. "We hide." "They'd smoke us out." She swallowed. "Then what?" "We don't hide." Jonah moved fast, checking traps, reloading rifles, reinforcing window planks. Caleb followed, no longer asking, just doing. They dug a trench behind the barn, piled rocks by the door, rechecked every nail, every wire. By the time the first rider crested the hill, the cabin looked too quiet. The lead moth fired a pistol into the sky. A signal. Jonah watched from the porch's shadows, rifle across his knees, another by his side. 6 riders, armed, Scarface among them, cloaked in black like death returned. He didn't smile, just stared. His men fanned out, circling like wolves. Inside, Miriam held Isaac close. Hannah clutched a kitchen knife back to the root cellar. Caleb crouched by the rear window, rifle ready. The voice came again. "You've had your fun, old man. Send out the girl and the gold, and maybe we let the rest breathe." Jonah stepped onto the porch, hat low, rifle in hand. "They ain't yours. You're going to wish they were." The man raised his arm. Gunfire. A shot tore through the window, glass shattering. Miriam dropped, shielding Isaac. Caleb returned fire, sharp and fast. 1 rider fell. The others scattered, dismounting. Jonah moved like a man reborn. Every step sure, every shot measured. He shifted from porch to window to barn wall, never lingering. 1 man flanked near the outhouse. Jonah dropped him with a single shot. Another charged the back door. Caleb braced it with his shoulder. "They're trying to burn us out," Miriam cried. Smoke leaked under the front door. They'd lit the sagebrush. "Into the root cellar," Jonah barked. Miriam grabbed Hannah and Isaac. Caleb hesitated. "Go," Jonah shouted. Caleb dropped through the hatch as a bullet tore above his head. Jonah stayed behind. Flames crawled up the porch, across the eaves. He dumped the last pail of water at the door's base, slowing the fury, then swung the door open and charged into the yard. Scarface stood alone, their eyes locked. Jonah raised his rifle. Scarface was faster, firing once. Jonah flinched, but the bullet missed. Jonah pulled the trigger. Miss, then another miss. His gun clicked empty. Scarface grinned. Out of luck, old man. He drew his revolver and staggered. A shot rang from the barn. Caleb stood panting, smoke curling from Miriam's hidden pistol. Scarface dropped to his knees, bleeding. "You'll regret this," he gasped. Jonah stepped forward, tossing the man's revolver aside. "I already regret plenty," he said. "But not this." The fire crackled. Town smoke met cabin smoke, the sky ablaze. The fight ended. 3 dead. 2 fled. Scarface left to bleed. Sheriff Hollis arrived an hour later, breathless, late. He surveyed the wreckage, bullet holes, scorched siding, the children's soot-streaked faces. "You all right?" he asked. Jonah looked at Miriam dusting Isaac's blanket, Hannah hugging Caleb wiping blood from his chin like it was nothing. "We will be," Jonah said. Hollis walked to Scarface, still breathing. "Barely. Want me to drag him to Fort Ellis?" Jonah shook his head. "Let the crows have him." "You sure?" "I'm sure." They buried the others in shallow graves, marked with rocks. The fire was out by dusk, the air heavy with ash and memory. That night, Jonah sat on the porch, bruised, bandaged, breathing. Caleb sat beside him, too tired to speak. Miriam leaned in the doorway. Hannah curled up with Isaac by the hearth. "You fought for us," Miriam said quietly. "Fought for myself too," Jonah said. "Took me a while to figure that out." "We're staying," she said. He nodded. "I'd hope so. That cellar's got your name on it now." She smiled. Caleb broke the quiet. "You think they'll come back?" Jonah watched the stars emerge. "Maybe. But this time we'll be ready." For the first time since the fire took his old life, he believed it. Not because of his rifle or the fortified cabin, but because 4 hearts beat inside that house. Somehow, without asking, he'd become their shield, their father, their chance at something better. If the world tried to burn that down, he'd meet it with fire of his own. The prairie was quiet again, but different. Not hollow, not godless, just quiet. Like the land had exhaled after holding its breath too long. Jonah leaned against the rebuilt porch post, ribs aching where a bullet had grazed him. Left arm wrapped tight, stiff as leather. He stood upright, a leaf, not alone. Behind him, the cabin bore scars, scorched beams, patched panes. But new things lived there too. Laughter, spoons clinking, little boots tracking dirt on a floor, once kept clean from neglect. Isaac waddled out, shirt untucked, dragging a wooden spoon like a sword. He grinned at Jonah, holding it up. "Fought the snake under the bed," he declared. Jonah crouched. "Win?" Isaac nodded. "Wasn't even big." "Next time, send Caleb. He's tougher." "I'm tougher," Isaac yelled, running inside. Jonah smiled, winning. A smile still cost a twinge, but it was worth it. Caleb stepped onto the porch, taller now, shoulders squarer, voice deeper. He carried kindling like it weighed nothing, eyes sharp with purpose, not just trauma. "You think they'll try again?" he asked, setting the wood by the door. "No," Jonah said. "The law made it clear. Anyone rides this way with harm gets buried before sundown." Caleb didn't smile, but he nodded. Inside, Miriam and Hannah sorted goods from town. Miriam moved with care, steady hands belittling her age. Hannah, her limp less noticeable, held up a blue bonnet. "I want to wear this to town." "Not yet," Miriam said. "Someday?" Hannah asked. Miriam hesitated, then smiled. Someday, town had shifted too. After the gunfire, the smoke, the sight of Jonah bloodied but firm. 4 children clinging to his name. Whispers became letters to the judge, telling the truth. Sheriff Hollis rode out twice a week now, not to scold but to check in, bringing supplies, news, books for the children. On his last visit, he handed Jonah a sealed paper. "Your guardianship's approved," he said. Judge signed it. "You're their legal kin now." Jonah took it with steady hands, voice soft. "Thank you." "No," Hollis said, "thank you." That night, Jonah read the letter by firelight. It was brief, declaring what they knew. These children, once lost in a desert of graves, belonged somewhere. The next morning, Jonah planted fence posts along the back acre. Caleb measured distance. Hannah carried stones for corners. Miriam planted onions and beans from seeds sent by a neighbor. Isaac sat in a wheelbarrow, playing sheriff. In a quiet moment, Miriam approached with Hannah's blue bonnet. "Do you remember your wife's name?" Jonah nodded. "Sarah." "Would she have liked us?" He paused. "She'd have taken one look at me raising 4 kids and said, 'Well, you're a fool, but a fool worth keeping.'" Miriam laughed, a clean sound that startled him. That evening, a rider came, a dusty, cautious, hands open. Not a threat, just news. The remaining outlaws, caught heading south, tried robbing a freight line. Lawmen took them by surprise. No survivors. Jonah thanked him, sent him off, and kept it from the children. Some ghosts were better left in dust. At dinner, they gathered at a table built from old doors and fence boards. 5 bowls, 5 spoons, no empty seats. Miriam said grace. Hannah passed bread. Caleb poured water with a steadier hand than men twice his age. Isaac fed a stray mutt under the table, a dog that wandered in after the shooting and sate. Jonah tried to shoo it, failed. They named it Trouble. After dinner, Miriam asked to carve their names into the porch beam. Jonah handed them the knife. Each made their mark, careful, shaky, honest. When done, Miriam returned the knife. "You forgot yours." Jonah hesitated, then carved his name beside theirs, bigger, firmer. The next morning, the sun rose soft and gold, the kind of light that kissed, not burned. Jonah stood outside, coffee in hand, Trouble snoring at his feet. He saw the fence, the hearth smoke, the woodpile, the faint handprints on the window. For the first time in years, he didn't stand on ashes, but on something growing. He turned, not just to the reader, but to the soul beyond the page, voice low like the hush before rain. "Let me tell you something. Life don't hand you miracles all polished. Sometimes they come dirty, crying, half broke. Sometimes they come with scars, with stories too tired to tell." He looked at the porch, the carved names. Sometimes miracles come asking for beans and water and end up giving you your life back. The dust settled, not because the past was gone, but because something stronger took root. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. Grit. Fire. And the stubborn love of a man who thought he had nothing left until 4 children gave him everything.